Okay, I am going to try something like incredibly ambitious for me. I'm going to try an actual full-on meal. Well, meal for me. And what I'm making today is my mother's version of enchiladas, which I've renamed Momchiladas because I learned as I grew up that what I had been eating my whole life was not an enchilada. I'm not exactly sure what you would call this, except for the fact that it's pretty darn tasty. And what you're going to need for it is tomato sauce, some ground beef, for the version I'm doing. This is one of those recipes that you can actually kind of customize really, really well. I've had it with ground turkey, and it's pretty good. So if you're not into red meat, you can make it with ground turkey burger or ground chicken. If you just don't like red meat but want it to be a little bit more moist, you could probably do it with ground pork. If you're vegan, you can also just use either the meat substitute or substitute the meat with beans or tofu. That would all work. Now, this does have cheese in it as well, but I talked to a vegan friend who said that you can substitute vegan cheese, I'm not sure how well it would melt, or make a thing out of a soy paste, different spices, and a cornstarch slurry, heat it, and then let it set overnight. That makes sort of a cheese substitute. So, let's get started making momchiladas. Now, look, my Hispanic friend, when I first told him about this, laughed at what this was because it's not enchiladas. But even he agreed it sounded pretty darn tasty. So, with that being said, let's get to it. First thing you want to do is brown your protein. Like I said, I'm using beef, and I'm doing a fairly large amount because I'm making a double batch of these because I make it differently for myself than I do for my son who lives with me, because the best part of being a cook is you don't have to put stuff that you don't like into what you're making for yourself. What I make for myself is very, very plain and very almost bland. And what I make for him has all sorts of chunky vegetables in it. So, you just start by browning your meat. And while that browns, I'm going to chop up the onion that goes into his. Before anybody is too horrified, I'm not mincing these. I'm kind of chopping them fairly big. And yes, I am left-handed, so it's going to look like I am cutting everything up completely wrong. But I'm a lefty, so it's just kind of the way I cut. And yeah, you just kind of want big chunks. It's going to be cooked in and mixed into the final product, so I don't bother mincing this or chopping it really, really fine. So that's about it. Chop it up, put it into a bowl, and put it to one side. So once your meat is browned and drained, I just use the same pan to fry off the onions. It's really hard to do this one-handed. And to the onions, I'm going to add 1 can of Rotel, which you can do it just with chopped tomatoes. You can do it with any sort of pepper tomato blend, and this is the one that's for my son. This is not the version I'm going to eat. Like I said, mine's really plain. And while those cook off, along with the Rotel, I'm going to show you what we do with the meat. Alright, I have my cooked meat in here, or, you know, for me it's ground beef. For you it might be chicken, pork, beans, whatever it is. You're going to add a can of tomato sauce And really, if you notice, other than like a can of, etc., I don't measure any of this because I never make it the same way. I mean, I make it the same way twice, but I never make the same amount twice. I never use the same amount of anything twice, so it's all just kind of by look, I guess. Like, you want your meat mixture or protein mixture to be fairly wet, but not like sopping. And maybe this is where my mom got the idea that this was enchiladas. I use this taco sauce. Now, I use a thick and smooth taco sauce in this, just to give it that little bit of like heat. But you can always go with a chunky. I was always a really picky child, and I still am. And I don't like chunks in a lot of my food. And like, I don't, in fact, I can't even eat. It's sort of a running joke among people to try and slip onions into my food because the results are not fun. At least not fun for me. They're kind of funny for other people. So I'm going to do this, and now I'm going to get the pans out and show you how to construct it while the stuff that goes into my son's enchiladas finishes cooking. Alright, I've got my pan, and what you want to do is just spoon a little bit of the meat mixture into the bottom, and that's mostly just so that it doesn't burn into the corners. And I get a package of yellow corn tortillas. Really, really simple. I've used white corn tortillas on this before, and honestly the yellow corn gives this a better flavor. And you're just going to spoon a spoonful into each tortilla, roll it up, and put it into the pan, and just repeat until you get the pan full. And like, I wish in a lot of ways that I had remembered before my mom died to ask if she had come up with this by herself, where she had gotten this recipe, because I've never seen it anywhere else. And like I said, I know it's not an actual enchilada because I've now had those and they're not like this. But it's just going to have to be a mystery for me because she died before I could think to ask her where on earth she had come up with this recipe. For all I know, she made it up herself. It's definitely kind of a Midwestern take on a Mexican dish, I guess. But I don't know. Like, I don't know if she came up with it herself. I don't know if she found it in some, like, magazine back in the 70s. Don't know. All I know is it's one of those meals that makes me quite happy. It does get me laughed at occasionally because I used to introduce people to it and say, hey, I'm going to make enchiladas, and they would be expecting something completely different than what I ended up giving them. But anyway, I'm going to finish this up, and then I will show you how we finish the dish, and then I'll also show you what my son's pan will end up looking like. Okay, now we come to the part that actually made my vegan friend laugh at me the hardest, because I was asking him how he would, as a vegan, replace mozzarella cheese. And he asked me what mozzarella cheese was doing in a supposedly Mexican dish. And I said, I have no idea. This is just how my mom made it. So what you're going to do is just spread however much you want mozzarella cheese on top of this. I happen to actually like this really cheesy, so it's going to get a lot. And then, like I said, we'll do up the other pan. And, oh, one other thing, you're going to want to turn your oven on to 350 degrees because this, after we get it all done up, is going in to bake for 20 to 30 minutes. Alright, for my son's pan, all I do is take the leftover meat that I didn't use in the pan that I made for myself, and I add the cooked off Rotel and onion that's nicely softened into that. Give it a good stir, and then do exactly the same thing with this that I did with the stuff I made for myself, which is just fill up the pan with rolled up mixture, cover it in cheese, and I mean, I suppose you could probably use, you know, a Mexican blend cheese. You could probably use, you know, just about anything you want, which is, like I keep saying, the beauty of this. Now, I didn't show you the step on the last time, which, like I said, it's mostly just to keep the corners from burning and the bottom from burning when it's in the oven. And also just to kind of give it a little something underneath as a base for your tortillas to sit on. So, I am going to spoon this up, get this pan filled, put the cheese on top of it, and get it into the oven. And that's how you make Momchiladas. Once they're out of the oven, I will show them to you. And they're one of those foods, kind of like a stew or a soup, that is just as good or better, I think, reheated as it is when it's on its first day. I usually make this with corn or a salad. Goes really well with this because it's a heavy meal, but it doesn't sit heavily in your stomach. You know, it's the cheese and everything and the tortillas do make it into sort of a heavy meal, but it's bland enough that it doesn't upset my stomach. So I don't make it all the time, but I do enjoy making it. Anyway, I'm going to fill up this pan, get the cheese on it, and get this stuff into the oven. Alright, and in they go for the next 20 to 30 minutes. So, we'll see you back then. Kitty break. Waking up Higgy. He looks so offended. I guess it's better than Zia, who's screaming at me that she's hungry, because that's what Zias do. Alright, they look done. I think I might have let them get a little bit too brown on top, but that's okay, because they look good to me. Now, depending on how impatient you are or how hungry you are, it's kind of best to let this sit for 5 to 10 minutes to kind of everything solidify. If you're impatient, it just is a little bit messier. So I'm not going to lie, I am hungry and impatient, so this might be a little bit messy getting it on the plate because everything is not kind of all set, but this is the stuff that I am making for myself. You can see no chunks in it, but there's the cheese, the meat, the tortilla. It's really, really good. I just add a little bit of hot sauce to the top of this, and I'm good. My son actually adds sour cream to his and hot sauce, and then he's all good. So if you try this, let me know what you think. I think it's tasty, filling, and like I said, it tastes better pretty much every day till it's gone reheated, which I think is the mark of truly something that you want to make, because who really wants to cook a meal every single day? I mean, I do, but who wants to cook multiple meals every single day? So give this a try and let me know what you think. Have a great day.